My mom and sister told everyone that I stole charity money to cover up their own theft, so I cut them off for good. But now, 6 years later, they want my help with their new business. My estranged family reached out to me recently after 6 years of no contact, and I set forth a condition that they don't really agree with. So now, I want to know if I'm in the wrong here. For context, when I say family, I'm referring to my mom and my younger sister. I am 28, F, and my sister is 24, F. She has always been quite spoiled and got away with everything as a kid. My dad was a bit of a disciplinarian with both of us, but my mother could never bring herself to say anything to my sister. It's not that my mom treated me badly, but there was a clear favorite. When I was in my second year of college, my dad passed away from an aneurysm. It was very sudden, and we found it very difficult to cope with as a family. But we tried. My dad's passing really brought us together, so my mom's behavior later on was all the more disappointing. My sister was just 16 when our father passed away, and it was obvious that it had really shaken her up. She started acting out in very strange ways, and we had to get her to talk to a psychiatrist because something was clearly going very wrong. Our family was pretty easygoing, and we had never given her a reason to rebel against us. Yet, after our father's death, she started crossing all the lines. She would stay out late every other day without telling us or my mother anything about her whereabouts. She began drinking and smoking, and even though she never confirmed it, we were pretty sure she was taking drugs. She got mixed up with the wrong crowd. To bring the situation under control, my mom had to step up and start going against her darling golden child. For a while, she really tried her best to control my sister. She cut off her pocket money so she couldn't go out on her own, but that didn't make a difference. She threatened to ground her, but even that didn't seem to faze my sister. She was way beyond these petty punishments. It wasn't until my mom said she would turn all of them into the cops that my sister and her friends really started taking the threat seriously. Pot had not been decriminalized in our state yet, so they could get into a lot of trouble for it. Even if we put aside underage drinking and smoking, by just threatening my sister, my mom was seriously scaring her. Eventually, my sister had to follow what my mom was telling her and quit everything, including hanging out with the friends she used to. My mom forced her to start spending more time with her old friends so she could get back on track and work towards the future. The last time I saw my family in person was 6 years ago when I went back home for a few days to spend some time with them. My sister's school, my old high school, was hosting a bake sale to raise funds for some charitable cause that I don't really remember anymore. All I remember is that my mother had forced my sister to actively participate in it, and my sister was part of the planning committee. My mother and I also baked a bunch of cookies and set up a stall to contribute in our own way and be there for my sister. I thought I was doing a good thing, unaware of what was about to unfold. After the event, I had plans with a couple of friends to go out for a movie, so I left quickly, leaving just my mother and sister behind at school. When I came back home after the movies, nobody said anything to me, and everything seemed normal. The next day, I went back to college as planned. It was then that I noticed a bunch of people from my high school had unfollowed me on Instagram. I had never had any issues with these people, and was even friends with some of them back when I was in high school, so I had no idea why this was happening. After thinking it over for a couple of days, I decided to ask one of them what was going on. When I sent them a message, they replied saying that after everything I had done, I should just be glad that people hadn't started blocking me yet. This made no sense to me because, as far as I was concerned, I had done absolutely nothing. I tried to ask them for clarification, but they didn't respond. I spoke to a few people I was still friends with from high school, but they were so far removed from the situation that they had no idea either. Just like me, they hadn't particularly kept in touch with anyone from our year. I suppose it was good in a way that the news from back home hadn't reached them. Eventually, after not being able to make sense of what was going on, I decided to speak to my mom and tell her what was happening. Even though I didn't think she would be able to tell me the truth, she was the one who finally explained everything. By then, almost a month had passed since the bake sale. When I told my mother about how everyone was behaving with me, she told me she had to come clean. It was then that she revealed that since my sister had been on the committee, she had stayed behind with everyone else to count the money they had made. When nobody was looking, she had swiped almost $2,000, a significant amount. Naturally, people started noticing. They kept calculating and recalculating until they came to the unpleasant conclusion that someone had stolen the money. Initially, everyone suspected my sister, but no one said anything. My mother also figured out what was going on, so she decided to protect my sister by throwing me under the bus instead. She concocted a story on the spot, saying I must have taken the money while she wasn't looking and left quickly because I had apparently become irresponsible with money due to my supposed drinking problem. According to her, since she had refused to keep sending me money, I decided to take it for myself and leave. She claimed she threw me under the bus to save my sister's future. Apparently, since I had already moved out for college and only came back home for a few days each month, it wasn't like it made a difference to me what people thought of me, but my sister still had to live with these people, and if they found out she was the one who stole money intended for charity, they would never let her live it down. To end the discussion quickly, my mother even gave up $2,000 out of her own pocket so that nobody would find out what my sister had done. She also begged everyone to keep their mouths shut about my supposed drinking problem because I was still trying to deal with it. And she didn't want people to know I had become so desperate that I was ready to steal money meant for charity. But people didn't keep their mouths shut. I knew that one of the people from my year had a sister on the committee, so she probably heard the story and passed it on to her sibling, who then told everyone else. People weren't necessarily upset about my drinking problem, but were critical of the fact that even though I had been a goody two-shoes in high school, I still developed a drinking problem as soon as I went away to college and even started stealing to support my habit. The lie my mother told to protect my sister shattered my reputation, but she didn't seem to care. She believed that since I didn't live with them anymore, it shouldn't matter to me. However, it did. People who used to know me now thought I was a thief and a drunk. I could deal with the fact that they thought I was an alcoholic, but I couldn't tolerate the belief that I was a thief because of what my mother had said. I was very upset with her and told her she needed to tell people the truth. She refused, and even told me that I was not allowed to tell the truth either, as it would ruin my sister's reputation. She had worked very hard to bring my sister back to normal, and couldn't risk it because she didn't want my sister to revert to her old habits, which would destroy her future. My sister had stolen the money because she wanted to go out with her friends, and since my mother wasn't giving her any money anymore, she took matters into her own hands. After the bake sale, my mother told my sister that this was the last time she was bailing her out. If she put another foot out of line, my mother would not hesitate to turn her in, and then she would be on her own. My sister had not expected to get caught during the recount of the money, and the incident gave her a reality check. I don't know if she truly turned over a new leaf or not, as I haven't been in touch with them. My mother and I had a huge argument about what should be done. I did not like that she had thrown me under the bus for no reason, but she believed that I did not matter because the only consequence I faced was that a few random people who weren't even relevant in my life anymore had unfollowed me on social media. If the truth came out, my sister's reputation and future would be at risk. I was about to graduate from a great college, so my life was sorted, and the least I could do for the family was keep my mouth shut about it. It was incredibly frustrating, and I hung up without saying anything. For a long time, I struggled to come to terms with this and thought about whether I should reveal the truth to everyone by posting it online and seeing where that would take me. However, I decided that I wanted to keep my peace and make my own way without bothering with them. I needed to move forward and rebuild my own life. 6 years later, I've built a successful career and am quite content with where I am. One day, out of the blue, my mom and sister reached out to me through email, saying they wanted to reconnect. They said they had started a new real estate business and heard about my success. They were looking for an investor and hoped I could support them financially. They seemed to have completely forgotten the past and the way they had wronged me. They didn't even apologize or acknowledge any wrongdoing. I felt conflicted but decided to reply. I told them that before I could even consider investing in their business, they needed to apologize publicly and acknowledge what happened 6 years ago. I wanted them to admit that my mother had lied about me stealing charity money and that it was my sister who had actually stolen the money. I made it clear that I would only consider helping if they were willing to publicly acknowledge their mistake and offer a genuine apology. They were offended by my demand and accused me of being selfish. They argued that revealing the truth now would only make things worse for them, especially since they still lived in the same city and interacted with people from my sister's high school. They insisted that since I didn't live there anymore, it shouldn't matter to me if people thought badly of me, but I felt this was unfair. I had endured the lie for so long and wanted the truth to be acknowledged. It wasn't just about money. It was about the principle and respect I deserved. I decided to stick to my guns and not engage further unless they met my conditions. I was done being used as a financial resource after being neglected for so long. I believed I had the right to stand up for myself and demand acknowledgement for the pain they had caused me. Update 1. Thank you all for your support and advice. I've decided not to engage with my family's business or attempt any sort of negotiation. I am doing well and don't need to prove anything to anyone. I realize now that seeking closure by getting them to publicly apologize was a way to hurt them, not just to get justice. I've chosen to move on and focus on my own life. I've come to terms with the fact that I don't need their approval or involvement in my life to be content and successful. Update 2. After sending the email and standing firm on my decision, I felt a mix of relief and emotional exhaustion. I have informed my grandparents about the situation and my decision not to invest in their business. They have been supportive of my choice, affirming that genuine reconciliation would require more than just an apology, with strings attached. They understand why I needed to stand up for myself and are proud of my decision to prioritize my own well-being. Update 3. A few days ago, my mom and sister responded to my email. They wanted to meet in person to discuss things further. They apologized for their past actions and admitted that they had been wrong. My mom was honest about her mistakes and expressed regret for how she had treated me. My sister also apologized and acknowledged that her actions had been deeply hurtful. They asked for a chance to rebuild our relationship, and while I was hesitant, I agreed to meet them. Update 4. Meeting with my mom and sister was emotional and awkward at first, but as we talked, it became clear that they were genuinely remorseful. They both apologized profusely and took responsibility for their actions. My sister thanked me for not exposing her and expressed a desire to start fresh. They decided that they didn't want any financial support from me, recognizing their mistakes. We agreed to take things slow and try to rebuild our relationship, starting with small steps.